Hello, it's the Knife Tale here, and it's about dang time. I had a TRM Bulldog that I gave away on this channel. So why the heck did it take so long to get to my own TRM Atom? I don't know. I'm a potato. What can I say? Let us get to specifications. Where is that stinking measuring tape? 3.5. Pretty much on the dot, on the blade length. Little under... Wait, hold on. Come on. A little under 3.5, sorry. Just a tiny bit. 8 1/8 overall. Just under 4 3/4. Pretty standard, pretty traditional. Reasonably sized, full-size knife. Though it does have a presence. It's hard to explain. It feels almost bigger than it is. It's not a small knife, it's a full-size knife, 100%, but it almost feels bigger than it actually even is. Maybe it's just that sort of stretched out, pouncing kind of flow it's got going on. I don't know. Yeah, it's longer than both. Pretty close to the Conspirator. It's similarly tall to the Conspirator in the open and closed position. What it is not is thick. Not in the slightest. Very thin. Blade stock, handle stick scales. This thing puts most knives to shame. These are slightly contoured, which is nice from an American-made company, because I didn't even mention that. TRM, USA, all the way. It's actually still, I think, a little bit thinner than the Elementum. Yeah. We'll find out right now, because I have calipers. Thickness, handle. Yeah. 412 thousandths. This is thinner than the Elementum. Blade stock is going to be very thin. Mm, 89, 90 thousandths. And behind the edge. This is a flat ground blade, but it's not going to be super thick. If I could stop being a potato and actually get the edge. Really? Oh, you're too high. Looks like this one is about 15 thousandths behind the edge. Pretty thin, yet still pretty usable all around. But it's such a thin... I don't know if you noticed that, but I just went like that and it took a little bit of skin. It is an extremely sharp blade, and it's held it. I have not actually had to sharpen this thing. I used it decently. It's a mix of pretty darn good and thin geometry, really good factory edge, at least on this one, and overall thin blade geometry. It slices, it passes through material like nobody's business. It's great. And that's what TRM does. They are, in my opinion, one of the most intentionally designed and purpose-driven designs out there. They're similar to Spyderco in that vein, but they might take it to the next level. Where there's a reason for all the things that Spyderco does, there's a reason for everything being the way it is here. And in this case, it's all about a thin, light, slicing performance monster. And it does it. They kind of feel different than a lot of other knives, just for that reason. Like, you first get it in hand, you're like, oh, this kind of feels... Because it's so thin, it feels not as substantial and premium in that sense that as you're maybe used to. But once you get used to it and once you realize what you're dealing with and what its intentions are, changes everything. Weight is another thing that they are very, very specifically intending to do. 2.86 ounces for a 3.5-inch blade. Yes, great ratios. Super light. This one is in wood, and it's thin wood. It came in red G10. I want to get a titanium version, but I think I might get a titanium version of the Neutron. Or the Bulldog. Of course, the Shadow would be the Grail, but... This is super light, super wieldable, super slicey. Where is my T8? There you are. Bigger than T8 on the pivot. I forgot about that. I have had this knife apart, but it has been a while, man. Woo. T10 pivots? Yes, T10 pivot. Then we have these screws that just hold on the scales, because this is extremely... TRM makes a lot of different scales that are very easy to swap out, because all you have to do is remove these two screws, pop off the scale, it comes right around the pivot, and you can put on a new scale. Slightly different for the pocket clip, but barely. It's just these screws. Now, these screws are T6s. I wish they were T8s. I always do. In fact, there are T6s holding this thing together underneath. That's where these standoffs are. I wish they were T8s. I haven't had any problem. In fact, I've had very good luck swapping these scales on and off. But I will say that the underlying T6 feel like they started to just hint at stripping for me. So I definitely think these need to absolutely, at the very least, be T8s underneath here. Because, yeah, they're okay. Could be better. I think that brings us to the end of the basics of the specs. Let's move on to the particulars. Long, well, it seems longer than it is, but long-ish, stonewashed, drop point blade, nice low tip below the pivot line, very accessible. The whole thing is, again, very driven for a specific purpose. It is slicey, it is draw cutty, it is super functional. You have TRM USA 20CV blade steel, and you have their logo, which I don't know why, but I absolutely love. This lasered in logo, I love this. It's the Three Rivers logo. How about I bring it into the focus? I don't know why. This is just done so nicely on this, and it just looks so good. I love that. You can kind of see that I've taken this knife apart a couple times. Captured pivot. This is a liner lock, and where is the magnets? I'm sure they're hiding because they're stuck to something. Titanium. Titanium liners. I don't think the hardware's not titanium. Oh! I take it back. Everything seems to be titanium, except for the pivot. Yeah, pivot and the blade. Looks like almost everything on here is titanium. I really thought that the liners wouldn't be, or something wouldn't be, but it is. Now, a titanium on steel lockup can be a little bit problematic. There is no lock bar insert in there, but because of how thin it is and because of how this thing engages to such an extent, I don't know. I haven't had any trouble with it. So if it's done right, it can definitely work. Back to the blade. No, we're finished with the... well, the one weakness of the TRM Atom, which I think they've changed on more recent versions, was these thumb studs. They are good-looking thumb studs, but they are slippery thumb studs. You see, it's bowled a little bit on the top here, so it's sort of at a declining angle. So getting underneath it is slippery and not the easiest thing. Now, that said, they work for me just fine. I can use them, no problem. I use my nail on the reverse flick, just sort of come up from underneath and pop it. It works. I know some people have had issues with it, and I believe they have been changed on some of the more recent stuff that TRM's doing. This knife runs on phosphor bronze washers, not bearings. Again, purpose-driven, sort of long-term, one and done. You don't need to mess with this thing too much. So it's not going to drop shut, but I can actually shake it shut. They're very smooth. They're very consistent feeling. They're not Chris Reeve feeling, but they're very good. Very good. Very, very satisfying. It really is. Though I will say, even though I like the slow roll, something about popping this one out is just, I like it more. Great access to the thumb studs. You got this area bowled out. You don't have the greatest access on this side, but again, it still works if you come up from below. Awesome lock bar access. I mean, that's lock bar access for days. Sharpening choil and plunge grind is very hard to tell, but it looks like it's here, but it's so thin that honestly I'd be willing to say it's here. By the time you get up there, I mean, you have a ton of life. Yeah, it gets a little thicker as you go up, but that's just because you're going up the blade. I'd honestly argue that it's up here. You have tons of life. This thing is, again, purpose-driven. This is a slicing user knife. It is made for an intent. The stop pin hits way back here. Up in there. Not going to be a problem. Anything. You can do whatever you want to that blade. Love to see it. It is the open and close stop pin. There is a little pop there. It's nice. It's not bad. Aside from the weakness on the thumb studs and the T6 changeout, this one has non-button screws. I mean, it has button screws, but honestly, they're so little and so rounded, they don't affect usage. And this is one of the most interesting pocket clips, titanium pocket clips I've ever felt. Just because it's a deep carry clip, it works great, it functions, it's super comfortable in the hand. We'll talk about ergos in a second. But when you start to push on it, it feels like it's got a ton of pressure. And then it starts moving all of a sudden. And it's weird. It feels like just getting it started is the hardest part, and then it sort of has good tension. I don't know how they did that, but it feels interesting. It works great. Just amazing, yes. I don't usually like when pocket clips get a little bit taller before they go down, but honestly, you can bend that one down a little bit. Don't even need to, because it just works. Ergos, they work. They're super neutral. They're super comfortable. It's got a slight contour. On this particular one, I don't know if the basic variants always come with contours. In fact, I know they don't. Some scales that they do a ton of scales, have contours, some don't. This one does. You can choke up, get right behind that edge. You can go all the way back here. You got tons of room. You got tons of comfort. The only thing I'd say is, because it is a little bit thin, and the edges, while they are chamfered, are a little bit abrupt. There are certain positions, like here, where it is very comfortable in this grip. But there are certain positions, like there, where it kind of feels like it's pushing into a part of my hand I don't want it to. For the push grip. Saber grip, no problems whatsoever. And honestly, it's not a problem for the push grip, it's just you adjust a little. So, TRM Atom. Their scales also, one thing I want to mention, feel very unique. They don't really feel like this feels very wood. These feel so much more processed and smooth. This one has more texture, but like a wood texture. It's just, I don't know. Their G10 also felt kind of different. It was thin, again, abrupt edges, but So overall, other than the thumb studs, which I believe have been changed, do I have anything bad to say about this knife? No. I mean, again, abrupt edges here. They are chamfered, but they're a bit abrupt. Maybe they could be chamfered a little deeper. Maybe. But it's such a thin knife. There are certain things that are just the way they are. I guess these points are kind of hard. I'm looking. I'm searching. I'm finding things. Yeah. Thumb studs and the button screws. That's the biggest issue, and they're not really issues here. This is a great knife. It's a USA-made knife. It's a great company. TRM are great people. I've had interactions with a couple of them over the years, especially when I started my channel and did the giveaway. TRM is an awesome company. They make good knives. I've heard nothing but good about them, and I would say that my own experience is consistent with that. Oh, I guess the biggest thing would be I want T8s underneath here. That's your flaw right there. I would like these to be T8s underlying here. These can be staying, but T8s underneath, at the very least. There you go. There's your flaw. Okay, more T8s. Always the screws. Other than that, I really like this knife. I really like TRM. I like what they're doing. Keep it up, guys. This is also very centered. That's all for me. I, as always, forgot to say like and subscribe in the beginning, but you can do it if you want. Leave a comment. Helps the channel. That's all. Try to get one of these. If you're into knives, or you just want a good knife that you're willing to spend money on, TRM is definitely a good option. That's all. See you later. Hey guys, Nutstill here, just popping back in because I totally forgot to talk about price point on this thing. And the TRM Atom is $220, and it is totally reasonable. Yeah, this is totally reasonable for a USA-made knife of this quality and this execution. 100%. They've got the Neutron, which is $210, is smaller. The Nerd, which is even smaller than that, for $209. They're very similar, but they've each got little things about them. The Bulldog, which I did a review on, for $225. Pretty much everything is in that same territory, other than the Shadow and the Titanium scale versions of their knives. The Titanium, of course, adds a lot, especially since it's contoured titanium coming out of the US. It's going to be expensive. They also make a fixed blade, which I'm quite interested in checking out myself. Hopefully I'll get the chance to. So, that's all. Still love them.